Right, shalom, RasTafari. Greetings, brothers and sisters. We're going to begin to get into the debunking of this popular but erroneous meme out there that Yahweh, Yod-Hey, Wah-Hey, is a moon god. I know some of y'all probably have heard, right, that Yahweh is a moon god. But that is incorrect. Right? He who be who he be is not a moon god. We're going to touch on Tahuti and thought. Right? But the problem with many of the Egyptologists and even the Kemetans, right? When we see the Kemetans are speaking about the so-called Afro-centric community, the RBG community, right? And even to a degree with some of the black Hebrews and the Hebrew Israelites, I and I brothers, even though they might not want to recognize I and I, because we say we're Ethiopian Hebrews. But the fact is that where a lot of these errors come in among black folks who are basically trying to, discover their roots and the truth is that they're not going deep enough. What do you mean by deep enough? They're not going to the Ethiopic roots. I want to touch on Tahuti and thought, but first let's put this in our thought right here. That Yahweh is not a moon god. That's the first and the foremost idea that we want to debunk. So how are we going to debunk this? Well, let's look at some of the so-called evidence and the facts. Now, we're in the spiritual Egypt. That's what's so very interesting, We're in the spiritual Egypt right here. And let's get a wide shot of some of the art and some of the images. So now here we have right here, this is one of the proofs that they use, right? Right? One of the proofs that they use. Asar, right? Asar, Yasar, Now, they will say that this right here is actually, they'll retranslate this sometimes by an I, and then they'll play A-E-I-O-U, and sometimes Y. Because most people don't have a linguistic really overstanding, so they have to depend on what's basically in print by pseudo scholars and others. So a lot of the confusion basically comes in because people are not able to really decipher the original languages, so we get these false memes right here concerning Yahweh being a moon god. So they associate this right here, significantly to make their point right here, right? Now, they say, see right here? They'll say, you see this right here? This is the proof. This is what they'll say. This right here. Asar, right? This is supposed to be Osiris, right? Asar, some say Osar, right? Yasar. Now, I want you to pay attention to the dot right here. These are some diacritical phonetical marks. Like I said, once again, most don't go deep enough. And because we as the once lost but now found black sheep of Israel, and amongst us are the Egyptians, because we were in Egypt. Let's just bring this up right here. When we were in Egypt, right? When we were in Egypt, just like in this spiritual Egypt, right? We did just like we're doing right now, right? For example, when we say about Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMoshiach, we can actually deal with the golden calf a little bit later. We've touched on the golden calf, but that's a part of it, very important part of it. The golden calf, stay tuned for the golden calf. The black woman is a black woman, the golden calf, this modern so-called post-traumatic slave disorder, speaking about the past 40 years, post-black power movement, so-called black woman, right? This mammy for white supremacy. Is she the golden calf? Is this why the golden calf was destroyed? Right? I know this is another point, but this is all related. All right, we're going to find that this is all related. But now to decipher this right here about Yahweh being the moon god, all right, we heard, I think it was Shaka Amose, because he's battling with someone. He won a debate with some some of the black Hebrews and the Hebrew Israelites. And many want to debate, many of them who are atheists, but they are about the goddess. So they're atheists. What they don't believe is in their own, right? In their own black male divinity. They don't believe in the Messiah, Yeshua. That's the problem right there. They don't believe in the word. They don't accept that word as true. So we're going to debunk this, right here. Here we go. This is the proof we want to use right here. So this whole moon god, let's put this over here. That's good right there. Okay. So what do we have right here? All right. Now this is the word for Ankh. All right. This is, Ankh. All right. This is what the word for Ankh. Ankh. All right. Ankh, they say, gives us Ankh. Now I want you to pay attention to this right here for a moment. All right. Pay attention to this right here for a moment, because we're going to bring this up. We got a couple of windows before we get to, okay, here we go. Let's move this over. We want to get okay, this would be good right here. Well, let's bring this over here. Okay, here's what they use, right? Before we even get to that right there. We got so much evidence, and this is just from a couple of actual days of going over some research, and we had to do a couple other vids and teachings, in the ministry. So we came forward to this right again. This is the entry within I think they use Budge's right here, Budge's hieroglyphic dictionary, which is very good as a preliminary reference, because of, it can give us a context to search within. But there are certain errors, as ones already have pointed out, concerning some of Budge's works. But this is where they start out from. Since they don't go deep enough, they teach you about Egypt, but they don't teach you about ancient Ethiopia. And that's where they err. Isaiah chapter 19, but special emphasis on Isaiah chapter 20. All right. So here we go right here. They say that this right here, you'll see these three glyphs, and they'll say these three glyphs, right? Or perhaps four. It all depends on in what order. They say these three glyphs are, now you notice it's A, right? With a dot. There's an A with a long, and then there's an H with a dot under it. Now, this makes a lot of sense. A lot of folks from a Western Gentile mind, especially many of our people who have been stripped of their language. You can see Willie Lynch, How to Make a Slave, to deny them their own indigenous language, and also to rob them of a knowledge of the language of Massa. So you have many folks who, in spite of their best intention, they're linguistically challenged. And this matters a lot when we're going into these sort of levels, saying that, Yahweh, right, is a moon god, because some Gentiles have said that in their writings, right, or their miswritings. It's the very same Gentiles who want to deny the clear racial identity of the ancient Egyptians and ancient Hebrews, but you will believe them when they say that Yahweh is a moon god. Right? But now look at this right here. Now, if you scroll out right here, zoom out right here, you'll see, it'll say down here, the moon, right? The moon god. Now this is the Hebrew, Yareach, or Yareach. This is Jericho. Let's see if we can zoom down right there so people can see that. Let's go close right there. There we go. All right, this is the Hebrew for part of the root for Jericho, Yareach. In Hebrew, this is the equivalent in meaning for what we have up here, right? And this is where the whole thing really comes down to, right? This is one of the main evidences that they try to use. Now, I want you to pay attention to this feather, right? This single feather. Now, it took me a while to really seek to decipher it, but I had to go to the Ethiopic, right? I had to go to the Ethiopic. What does Which scripture is it? Mindanao. It is Isaiah chapter 20. They shall be afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia, their expectation, right? And Egypt, their glory. So we get a lot of talk about ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. The Kemetans say that their culture came from inner Africa, from the Kui land, pointing in the direction of what we know as Ethiopia. In fact, they even identify as Ethiopia. This is why Isaiah chapter 20 also speaks that way. We're just laying down some primary evidence right here. But I want you to look at these letters right here. You have a feather, you have a outstretched hand, and then you have what some have interpreted to be twisted cord, right? And then right here, you have what seems to be either some sort of moon or, it's variously assumed what this is, but it's usually linked with the moon, right? With the moon. Now they say that, well, the Hebrews, right, worship the moon god. These fools. This is so foolish. Because what they don't recognize is that the sun, the moon, the stars, right? The sun, the moon, and the stars are for signs and seasons and days and years. We have this in Orit, Zefitret, or in the Hebrew, Bereshit, which is Genesis, Moses' first book, right? But this is a feather, right? This is a hand, right? Some sort of a hand, right? A hand and an arm right here. And this is a twisted cord, like a braid, right? So we have an A with a dot on it. How's that pronounced? That's the key. See, here's where you have to study phonetics. And here's where a lot of them are not doing even due diligence to what they can understand. Right? What is clearly understandable is that this letter would be more of a I, like a I, like or a I, not a Y. Right? This is a A sound instead of a ah, like here. This would be a I, yeah, yeah, ah. Yeah. Now one would say, oh, there, you see, it sounds like Yah. Now this letter right here this is the H, but there are 3 H's in the ancient world. The Hebrew has 2. We all know this. There's the Hey and there's the Chet. The Hey and the Chet. As we showed you down here with this Hebrew equivalent right here. Yarei. This is this sound. This is the het. You might hear Muslims say Muhammad. That is not the ha. See, in Yahweh, it is a soft ha. But that's, we're not going to get into that so much right there. What we're going to point to is the first letter, right? Because they want to change this letter to a Y, right? They want to say, well, this actually later on is a Y. And this is where it's linked with the moon god and the Hebrews and the moon god. Okay. All right. We got so much evidence here that we didn't write up a narrative for this because, we could approach this from a couple of different angles right here. But now let's look at this word right here. Now, anyone who's into Egyptology, will know that there's at least 3 H type of sounds. Here we have another H sound, right? Which some people say this is variously. Some say it's like an embryo or like a fetus, it's like a circle with lines through it. So some have said it's like an embryo. Different people have tried to interpret what it's like. Could we say it's like a moon or it's like a sun or it's like a world or something like that? It's like a circle that has stripes through it. But now look at the first letter right here. If you look at the first letter, it's this very same feather, right? This very same single feather. All right, we're going to put emphasis on this single feather as we see right here, right? Or let's just pull out a little bit so we can see this right here, right? So they will go from here and say, well, this is an aspect, right, of the moon god, or it's the moon god. But now notice the word right here. This is the spelling for Ankh, for this symbol right here. Now, how do they say it? Do they say it as Yank? They don't say Yank. They say Ankh. Ankh. It's an A sound. Now, They want to go from an A to a Y, but that's not how linguistics work. That's not how proper hermeneutics work. So we have Ankh right here, right? This single feather. There's a reason why I'm emphasizing this single feather, right? So these are two ways of spelling Ankh, right? Ak, the spiritual light. The N, the top glyph, denotes a duality in motion. Adding this to Ak, right, gives us Ankh, light in manifestation. That's interesting because the moon reflects light, the light of the sun, right? And we know from Genesis chapter 1 that the sun, the moon, and the stars are for signs and seasons and days and years. So the lights of the heaven are for what? Telling time. Right? So when we speak about, well, the Hebrews and the new moon and that was for telling time. Anyone in the ancient world, anyone who has their own land and farms, right? Even the almanacs that they have used in America was about the same thing, about being able to tell times and seasons and days and years, because that's the true clock. That's the true clock, my brothers and sisters. That's the true clock, right? So in making this particular point right here, let's look at this first symbol again. So we have this single glyph right here. So it's obvious that Ak, right? Ak right here, right? Ak right here, right? Or Ankh right here, but Ak, the spiritual light, adding this particular symbol, which is like an N in motion or like a waveform, right? This is what this symbolizes. It's an N, right? In interpretation, this N, but it's also a wave motion, right? Like a wave motion, like they show you the wave motion, like you see in science studies, when they say a wave motion. So we have to recognize that the ancients, these ancient Afro-Shemitic peoples, right? Because we're speaking about our peoples here, right? We're speaking about our peoples here. Let's just bring this up. I peoples here, right? They knew better than the Gentiles, right? Who have made so many mistakes with their translations, but at least different than some of our folks. They'll go off. Our folks go off saying, oh, Yahweh is a moon god. It's a moon god. It's a moon god. Prove it. Right? And here's where the proof. This is where they derive their proof from, right? They derive their proof from resources like this right here. And they make these sort of comparisons. They'll show you this right here, right? Which refers to the moon. They'll show you this down here, right? And they'll say, see, behold, it's the moon. Right? Osiris, the moon. And they'll say, see, the Hebrews. And then they'll retranslate this from an A. And here's where they get tricky. Here's where they get deceptive. They will twist this from an A, right? As you see right here, A with a dot over it, right? That means it's not a but like a right? It's a It's the A being stopped. The A being that point right there. Right? This is not a Y. All right. We're going to show you the Y in just one moment. This is not a Y, because if they want to change this right here and then say, well, this A with a dot, A with a long, H with a dot underneath. If this is Yah, according to them, then how could this right here be Ankh and not Yank? Then how could this be Asar, right, instead of Yasar? See, here's the point you have to really come to. Is it Asar or is it Yasar? Because if you notice, you have the dot here, you have the dot here. This is one and the same as this. This is one and the same as this. They just use different symbology, different symbols, right? Almost like different sigils. They use different sigils to basically describe it, describe different aspects. But in spelling out this sound, this is it right here. In spelling out this sound, you can see how it's consistent down here, right? The feather, the hand, the twisted cord. The feather, the hand, the twisted cord. We have this single feather here. We have a waveform. And then we have this some say an embryo. This is how it has been explained to me, and seems as though there might be some truth to that. But this circle here with the stripes, let's just call it a circle with stripes through it. And these 3 letters spells out Ankh. You know, as one say the Ankh, these 3 letters spell out the Ankh. Right? So how is it if this right here is Yah according to them, right? Remember, it's still the feather. So we're both comparing the English transliteration to the Medu Neter, or the hieroglyphic symbol, right? So we see the feather, single feather, A with a dot, right? Asar, A with a dot, right? A with a dot. So how can they say, well, this is Yah right here, right? And then notice right here, this has an A with a dot over it too. So wow, how would that? So they must be saying this wrong. Asar. How many of them are saying Asar? They say Asar is the true name of Osiris. Well, if that is so, then how could this be Yah, right? If you're going to say this is Yah, then this must be Yasyar. This must be Yasyar. This is Yashar. You've been saying it wrong. All the Egyptologists have been saying this wrong for all this time. They want to say, well, Yahweh is the moon god, right? But then they don't even know, it proves they don't even know what they are talking about, because they are getting reflective. This is what they call reflective Egyptology. It's the Europeans, it's the Gentiles that have put out that particular meme that the Hebrews, right, worshipped, right, the moon god. You know, so it's almost like saying that, you know, Jews worship the Torah. Everybody knows that a so-called Jew doesn't worship the Torah. It's almost like saying that a Christian worships the cross. Now, of course, it seems that way, but really a Christian worships Christ. Now, the cross is an element, right, within that cosmology, or within that religion, or within that religious or spiritual system, but it's twisting things. You know what I mean? It's almost like Satan, you know, being the accuser, you know, to cause doubt. You know what I mean? But let me just go forward with this. I know this is a little bit, someone gonna say, oh, it's a little bit rambling. Well, yeah, it is. 'Cause I got so many points to bang you with that, you know, I'm talking about those haters, right? And ignoramuses that are so busy to so-called point to we as Hebrews, Ethiopian Hebrews, black Hebrews, and try to insult what we are about when they don't even know their own roots. So it's almost like a divide and conquer. Those in the Kemetan community, or the so-called Egyptology community, should embrace a better knowledge of the Hebraic and the scriptural Torah, we could say, teaching and tradition. And those who are black Hebrews, Ethiopian Hebrews, right, and Israelites, also need to look at Egypt and remember what Yahweh says in Isaiah chapter 19, that Egypt is my people. In other words, the two go actually hand in hand. Moses was learned, right, in all the wisdom of the Egypts. Well, your Bible say the Egyptians, but really it's the Egypt, speaking of upper and lower Egypt. And now lower Egypt, that's the Egypt, but the upper Egypt, this is the Tob, or the Tobi, or the Kui land, the God land, or we can call modern today Ethiopia, right? Or reaching into inner Africa, right? And that's why Hebrew is an Afro-Shemitic language. Amen. You know, Hebrew is classified as an Afro-Shemitic language. Amharic, Afro-Shemitic language, a pure Shemitic language. Ge'ez, right? Ge'ez is that pure Shemitic language. Let me show you this right here, since I'm going into a little bit of I don't even call this an overdrive, but a little more detail. We won't present some of the overall exhibits, right? And here we took a couple of pics from what's his name's book, Dr. Ben, right? We're going to use Dr. Ben, right? Dr. Ben's his own evidence that he has in the book dismisses this faulty meme that the Hebrews worship the moon. right? The Hebrews worship a moon god. Those who are ignorant, it's like today. It's like folks who are ignorant today also make errors in so-called religion, you know, like those who are like novices, or those who are, you know, like we look at modern Christians today, or people who read the Bible. It's very easy because of the false images and the counterfeit doctrine to read the Bible, right? And without the Holy Spirit to get the wrong impression of it. That doesn't mean that the Bible or the scripture or the intent of it is wrong, but it means that people have been deceived. This is what Yeshua HaMoshiach said to the Pharisees, right? They have the keys of the kingdom, but because they have not entered in, they prevent others who are entering in. So many times it's your teachers, right? And your leaders, you know, the idol shepherds, right? Who are leading the sheep astray. So let's deal with source material right here. And the source material that we have access to shows that Ankh begins with this same singular feather. I'm going to get back to my basic point right here. That Ankh right here begins with this same single feather. This same single feather, right? And then we have the A, right? Ankh. So how can this be Yah and this be Ankh? This should be Yank, right? And then how can this be Asar, right? When this is the same A with the dot, which is symbolized by this singular feather. All right, now let's bring up a pretty good alphabet chart, hieroglyphic alphabet chart. We should have probably brought that up from the first, right? But I'm gonna share this right here. Let's see if we can. Here we go, right here. All right, let's see if we can. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Now let's zoom in, all right? Then this is the Merowe, getting close to Egypt. You see this right here? This is a little bit blurry, but let's see if we can get it so it's clear. You see the first one? It's like a bird, right? Like the A right there. And then you see the second one, that feather, that's the same feather. You see the A, the dot. We actually got this from Dr. Ben's We the Black Jews. You see that hand? That's that hand with the A, the long sound. Now you see right there, the Y. What is the Y? The Y is two feathers. The Y is two feathers. Let's see if we have it down here. No, we don't have it down here. Now here's what you should be studying, right? Here's what you really don't study, the Ethiopic, right? The Ethiopic is a pure Shemitic language, right? Ethiopic, Shemitic. So I say this to some of those who say Ethiopians are Cushites predominantly, then how is Ethiopic a Shemitic language? This makes you have to go back to the drawing board, because we've been told things from the Gentile white Western understanding of things, and we have believed them. And then when your own brother comes forward and gives you evidence, and we're giving you evidence right here, right? Evidence you have to check out, or evidence that you should check out. Now let's go right here and let's get down to the Y. Where's the Y? There we go, right there. Right? You can see the Y, right? The Y. Let's see if we can zoom this up. Zoom in on this right here. All right, let's see if we can zoom in on this. All right, this is the Y, right? And you can see the Y right there. Now let's see if we have the hieroglyphic. Is there a hieroglyphic here? Okay, there's not a hieroglyphic here in this chart right here. But that's the Yod right there, right? That's the ancient Yod, right? We can see this in the Sabian right there, right? And you can see that in the Paleo-Hebrew, right? The Paleo-Hebrew. And the Paleo-Hebrew was a short script from the ancient script. It was almost like how we may speak slang or patois, right? How many speak patois, not the so-called proper English. When we talk about the proper Shemitic, that was the Ethiopic, right? The proper Shemitic was the Ethiopic. So we have this right here, right? And then let's go to, what's our next exhibit? Okay, here's our next exhibit. This is also from Dr. Ben's, all right, from Dr. Ben's writing. Let's see if we can get this right here. All right, Dr. Ben's writing. Right, so Dr. Ben said that these existed, right, before Jehovah, right, YWH, YWAH. You see he has it mixed up right there. So we be YHW, right, made man and woman. Now he has, okay, we went down again. Let's see if we can bring this on the side. All right, let's see if we can bring this on the side right here. Right, okay, this thing seems to be orientated, probably how I took the picture, right? So here we want to show you what he says, right, is Yahweh, right? Let's use this one right here. What he says is, see, this thing keeps twisting up right here. Okay, there we go. Let's keep it on the side right there. Now that is said by him to be Yahweh, right? This is supposed to be a Y. Remember, it's an A sound, the H. And this is the bird right there, the little pigeon like is a W. This will be Yahweh, right? This is from that same page that he has. Okay, this is Ethiopia's Black Messiah. Let's see that right there, okay? All right, and let us go forward to this right here. Let's see if we can get this right here. All right, okay, let's see if we can get this. Here we go, right there. Now this thing keeps flipping. Sorry about that, brothers and sisters. You know, these technologies right here. Okay, let's see if we can look at it like that. Okay, sorry it's on the side, but you see how it keeps flipping over. All right. I think I have something else here to show you. Let's see. This is the book, right? This is the book right here. All right, We the Black Jews. This is where, let's see if we can get a clear, there we go. All right, We the Black Jews. All right? All right. That's where we took that information. The witness to the white Jewish race myth. It's a very valuable book, right? It has a lot of documentation information that we should use as a study, as a reference. A lot of valuable information in there. All right? Okay, so let's go forward to this. Sorry that didn't really work out as we really had planned right there. But we thought that might happen. And therefore what we did was, here we have alphabet, right? A hieroglyphic alphabet. So let's zoom this up, get this around 125. So you can a little bit more because it's kind of small here. Okay, here we go right here. Now, notice something right here. This is good right here. You can notice something right here. Let's look at the top row. All right. Now, in this top row, all right, back up a little bit right here. In this top row, it's interesting because the A, right, the A is that kind of like, what's that, an eagle? Right, the A in that same hand, this is kind of small here. I think I might have another larger one, right? Hieroglyphic chart. Right, then we have the I. What did I say about the dot, the A with the dot on it? Right, the A with the dot over it. Right, namely speaking about this right here, the A with the dot over it. Right, will be more of an I sound. All right, so some would translate it IAH, and they'll say, "Whoa, there you go." But you have to remember that we're coming from the Western Gentile, from English perspective, and they don't refer to the more ancient, the Ethiopic, as a reference, because if they did, that would point the origins of the Hebrew and the origins of ancient Egypt to Africa. And they don't want to do that from the Western Gentile white supremacy sort of mindset. All right. So this also confuses many sincere, ones who are trying to study and find the truth. So they get caught up on some of these false narratives that, they worship the moon god, right? Because they're lost in translation. So you can see right here, this is an I, single feather. Right? Then when we go over here to the Y, right, we have double feather. Now, Israel, or the name of Israel, also has been found, right, with an ancient artifacts, and ancient hieroglyphs. And we've also seen that using transliterating the Y of Yisrael with the double, with the double there. Right? So it's not, what I'm trying to say is that it's not consistent what they are saying. Right? It's not consistent. Let me just give you this evidence too. I thought this chart would be a little bit, it's not as clear, but I'm sure ones can hopefully make out what we're seeking to say there. Right? If not, maybe we have another chart that we can bring forward. Let's see if we have it over here. Let's just get to some of our main research. Now, the name Yahweh has been found in hieroglyphics. Right? And here's one example right here. Here's one example, right? Which is a little bit clearer of what we were saying. Now, when read this way, this is a tracing of what has been found, and we've seen pictures of it, and it's out there, related to Shashu, right? Shashu and Yahweh. You can probably look up Yahweh in hieroglyphs, right? And you can see this is a double, right? This is a double feather. Now here, this is read, though this is opposite of this, because you always read the hieroglyphs to the face, which way the characters are facing, right? So here you would read it, facing this way, right? Now in Yahweh, in the name Yahweh or Yod Hey Wahey, let's bring this up as well, right? Okay, here we go, all right? Let's just bring this front and center. Okay, now here's what's very interesting. This is getting to the root of it, right? This is really getting to the root of it. Here we have double feather. We have the twisted cord. We have this like pigeon type of bird, because there's different birds which symbolize different vowel sounds or different sounds, right? Different sounds. All birds are not the same bird. And then we have here, so this is consistent with the Hebrew, right? The Y, double feather, the H, the cord, the W, right? The bird, this little bird right here, and the other H, this right here. So this would be Yahweh, right? Yahweh in hieroglyphics, not this over here. Let's move this right here so we can see if we can get this a little bit side by side so you can see this. All right? Because now they say, well, this is Yah. But then if you notice, there is no Aleph and there's no Oin. Those are two A's within Hebrew. This would be I or A. This would be a long A sound, and this would be a H sound. So it's similar, right? We can say, yes, definitely it's similar, but similar does not mean the same, brothers and sisters. Similar does not mean the same. What they're trying to do is fool you and play with your ignorance, right? And then infer points, right, to make you believe, and then you run off on that make believe, and most folks do not do their study, right, to show themselves approved. They'll say, yeah, they won't even say they heard it anymore. They'll say, yes, that's what it is. This is also similar right here. That's the similar thing right there. We're going through some of our art right here and some of the word pics to see if we have anything else. There's a couple open windows that we could go to as well, but we want just to present a little bit right here to first of all debunk that this in hieroglyphics, right, which is related to the moon, right, and is related to an aspect of Osiris, right, according to the ancient Kemites. Let's move this out right here. According to the ancient Kemites, here we have a larger, what you call them? Okay. Now, this, how can we explain this? Some of y'all already know about this. You can't read this. This is a different, how can I say? This is literally this sound. This right here is a symbolical type, which has the eye, the throne, and the axe head, right? The axe head, or the netta, right? It has the netta, the eye, the throne, and the axe head. right? Which became the representation for Asar, who they call Asar, right? Asar or Isar, Isser. Remember, the single feather, right? There's an A with a dot on it, but it also can be transliterated as an I. Now, the double feather, as we have over here, as we've seen in the example of the hieroglyphic charts from Egypt, from Meroe, which is a southern kingdom that's linked to the kingdom of Candace, or the Queen of Sheba, the Meroe kingdom, what we had showed you off of the phone right there, that was taken from Dr. Ben's book, We the Black Jews, right? The witness, that debunks the so-called white Jewish myth. And that's a whole other angle right there, right? But as you can clearly see, right, we're both showing you that these two spellings are different, and an actual art and fact, right? An actual art and fact, you can see this right here, right? If we still have some time, I'll take you to some of the web related. Let me take you to some of the web related references right here. Okay, let's go right here. The web related references right here. All right, so let's take you right here. Bring this up. Okay, we have went down this whole page. See, that's a Masonic thing, all right? Basically, where they say that is a Masonic thing. You know what? I wanted to get this and talk about the light bulb, all right? The light bulb from ancient Egypt. So I'll save this, excuse me, right here. I want to save this to the folder for another upcoming lecture. All right, so we'll save that right there. Let's go to the top of the page, right? And let's go on web. So you can see what we've searched right here. Let's see what we search. We search YHWH, Yahweh, and hieroglyph, right? And when you click on the web related source right there, right? This is one of the first pages on the web right here from 2010. Then you see Shashu, right? The mystery of Shashu and the name Yahweh, biblical anthropology, the Nubian, right? Context of Yahweh, Yahweh, Jehovah, or Yahweh, God's name, Jehovah, how to pronounce it, so forth and so on. But you can see that there is some of the researchers are seeing what we have seen, perhaps from a different perspective, but that it was inconsistent. This, that's like a 19, maybe back in the days of Wallace Budge, 1920, that's like a 20th century, Egyptologist speculation that Yahweh is a moon god. It's already been debunked by further evidence, right? And other eyes on Egypt, right? And on ancient art and fact. So here we have, some of the representations right here. Let's go to the first right here. So we can, actually, if you want to see now, this is one side of it, right? But let's see if we go over here. Here we have, some of the representation of where they have found this, right? Where they have found this concerning the Hebrews, right? Concerning our ancestors. Now, some say that's an alien there, with the two eyes, but that has been debunked too. Now, that's what we was looking for. So you can see the actual art and fact, you know what I mean? So you can see the art and fact, right? For what the trace along is right there. Now, where we had touched on this, right? Let's see if we can get a better representation than this right here as well, right? And in the reading of these right here, right? These are supposed to be like the Hebrews or captured peoples. Now you can see it down here. Let me point to it. Here's what we're talking about, right? Here's where we find these particular letters right here. This, and this. Now, this is related to, let's see if we can, what do we have here? This is related to, this is similar related to down here. You can see this down here. Now they try to isolate one of them, right? They try to isolate one of them, but it's clear that even the H, so we have YHW, the H is a different H than the twisted cord, right? The H is a different H, but what is missing is that hand that symbolizes a long A sound. All right, so it's clear that what that signified in ancient Egypt, no doubt related vis-a-vis to the moon, is no doubt correct. Now, when one say, well, the Hebrews, much of the Hebrew, right, deals with the moon in some respect and in some way. Well, that too is correct because that's how we calculated time. That's how most people, right, in the ancient world that wasn't living in a modern Gentile city that did not farm or was not close to the land. See, y'all look at your clock. You look at your watch when you want to tell time. The ancients had to understand the motions and the revolutions of the heavenly bodies because that was for time telling, right, and for telling of the time. So to say that is so disingenuous, right? And it's actually based, you know what I mean, on very faulty, it's basically based on ignorance, right? Now, here's what's so interesting right here, right? Here's what's so interesting right here. They'll say, well, you see this right here? This is thought, right? Thought, you know, Tahuti. And we don't want to touch on Tahuti right here because we're going to have to go into the pre-Kemet, right? The pre-Kemet and get to the Ethiopic to rightly interpret, you know, this evidence that we have, right? And rightly, debunk most of the false conclusions. So here we have, you know, the telling of time. You know, this is the telling of time, brothers and sisters, right? If you're farming, if you're living in a community where you have to farm, why? Because the moon affects the water. So you need to know when to plant. You know what I mean? You need to know when to plant, so forth and so on, to get the best out of your investment. You see, this is how it was in the ancient world. So you can fool modern citified people because they don't have any connection. Let's get this one right here. They don't have any connection, right, with the land, right? They don't understand, right, how to survive outside of Babylon, right? You know, because they are in an artificial condition. So yes, there's the new moon celebration, the Rosh, right, or the Ras Hadash, or the Ras Chodesh, the new moon, right? Because the new moon was significant, right, to the life and the communal life of the people. But there's nowhere in the scriptures where they worship the moon or they ascribe to the moon any divinity, any creative aspect. The moon is a created, right? It's a created, some say satellite. You know, we don't want to get into all the extraterrestrial stuff, you know what I mean? But it's created. But nowhere in the scriptures do we find, oh, the Hebrews are here worshiping the moon. See, all of that is based on a faulty inference. And we already have gone through some of the actual examples of evidence to really show you that the AAH, that they deceive you and then they change it to I, then they change it to a Y, and they say, see, that's Yah, that's the moon god. The Hebrews worship the moon god. And they don't expect, right, for you to really study, right, to show yourself approved. In fact, they are hoping that you don't, right? Then you can be like Eve. They can make believe. Now here, it's interesting because here is the double feather, that, right, the loop right there, right, that loop. Then we also have the H right there as well, and the bird, right? You know, the H and the bird right there. But let's go further. We have more evidence than that. So here is, in hieroglyphics, is a more accurate representation, right, of the Hebrew name, right, for God, right? Or the Hebrew name for Yod Hey Wet Hey, the two feathers, right? This right here, which some say is a compound, right? And then this right here, which is this loop right here, which is a W sound, and then another type of W sound, because actually Yahweh that we have as a tetragrammaton, we have found it in the ancient Ethiopic to be a trigrammaton. In other words, 3 letters, right? And not to get into some of the details on that right now. Oh, bring that one up. This is a good one too. We should have actually used this one. We thought we had this one right here. We didn't. All right. Now, here's what's so very interesting. Look at the hand. Here, the hand is ascribed to be a B. Right? You know, this, the bati, right? Or the leg, the calf, and it's Ethiopically related, a B too. So we've been reading that as I, or A for dot, A long, and let's bring that up. They'll say this right here. Here's what they bring up right here. Let's grab this because we need to have that. That would have been a much better. You could forgive our brothers and sisters for not having that. Okay, here's what they use. Right? They'll say, see, this proves that Yahweh, Yah, is a moon god. They worship the moon god. Then they have Hebrew down here, but since many of them can't read Hebrew, you know, they'll probably think maybe this is the same as that. This is a Y, this is a R, and this is a H, a chet, a KH, or some old Jews will put CH. So it's a Yod, a Resh, and then we have chet, right? This is Yareach, which refers to the moon as Jericho. And Jericho was the city of the moon. That was going to be my next debunk point, because the Hebrews, as some of the Egyptologists and some of the Kemetans and the half faux centrics, half Frenawi and half enemy, you know what I mean? The half faux centrics, you know, to debunk that, then if they worship the moon so much, why would they destroy the city that was devoted to the moon and worship of the moon, which was Jericho, right? The city Jericho was devoted to the worship of the moon. Now, down here, if you link this particular Hebrew and you go do, you know, a blue letter or a word study, you know, on, in the Hebrew, a Strong's Concordance study of that, you will be able to reference the link between the Hebrew that's there, right, with Jericho, right, with Jericho, Yerecho, Yerecha, Yereach, Yereach, Jericho, Jericho, Yereach, with this. Now, but it's not like you said Yah right there. You see, that is not what it is, because we're going to the root of it. Just because it sounds similar does not mean it's the same. Right? You know, many words basically sound similar, right, in English. And we're not talking about tomato. This is not one of those tomato kind of things. They try to say, oh, it's just tomato, because what they're hiding is they're hiding their ignorance of anything beyond the Eurocentric supreme delusion of the European mind, Egyptology, assumptions, right, that they're trying to build their so-called, Afrocentric culture upon, without going to their own indigenous roots. And we're speaking about the Ethiopic. The Ethiopic is always left out, right? The Ethiopic is always left out in these discussions. And we have found that by consulting and going to the Ethiopic, this is where we really get to the root. This is where we really can, you know, see what's what. This is also very interesting, right? Yehuda. It's not Yahuda. People always say Yahuda. They are inserting, right? When we say Yahweh, 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 really it's Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. We say Yah, you know, because we see Jah, J-A-H. And they say, well, no J, there's no J. It was a Y. If you go to the 1611, it'll be I-A-H. So we say, oh, see, that must be the same. Similar does not mean the same. Because remember, we are still approaching this from the Gentile language. we're approaching from English. How does it read in English? So it's easy to deceive ones if you are just going to go to the English. But then those of us who can go to the original and the root languages, this is where we start to shake our head and say, wow, people are being deceived big time, right? And thinking that, oh, Yahweh was a moon god because some idiot who does not speak any Afro-Shemitic language and barely has a good handle on hieroglyphics or Medu Neta is saying so, right? So with that being said, brothers and sisters, right? Because, we're going to have to, and see, this is one of these crazy, this is some really crap here, so you get this modern crap. This is crap, right? This is basic crap. Yeah. Somebody say, well, it's there to teach the children, but it's crap. Teach the children the truth, right? And once again, let's go here, right? To show that kind of small right there, right? Kind of small there, but you can also see this. This is on, I think, a related, This is on a related one, Yahweh, right here, related to the wings of the wind, right? Tashashu, Yahweh, or Yahweh, Yahuwah, 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 Yahuwah. You see, in the Fidel, we have 7 sonants. E, U, E, A, E, O. You see, E, U, E, A, E, O. That's very important. Hebrew was a code. You see, Hebrew, that's why there's not really vowels so much, right, in Hebrew, right? These vowels, and this is why there's so many different, even among the black Hebrews and Hebrew Israelites and many of the different groups, they'll argue over, oh, it's Yahweh, right? Or some would say it's Yahweh, right? Or some will say it's Yahweh, and then, all this because they don't have any source. They don't go to the root, right? They don't go to the Ethiopic root. The Ethiopic is the key. The Ethiopic is the missing key, right? They go to the Eastern Shemitic instead of the Western Shemitic. It's very clear, right? Right here. This is this stela right here. Right, the stela of Shashu, the Shashu of Yahweh. And, we're going to save this right here because sometimes when you come forward to these things, right, you're not able to find them. So this is showing you that it's based on actual, right? It's based on actual, art and facts and actual artifacts, right? We're speaking of actual artifacts. We're not talking about theoretical concepts here. Many of their assumptions, where they came to the assumption that Yahweh is a moon god, most of this was based on theoretical assumptions, partly because they didn't have enough evidence. As more things have been discovered, and this is another good example right here, where you're actually looking at the actual cartouche, right? And we can actually see, the root, the yod, hey, right? The wet. People say, what about the other hey? Let's look at some names, because some of the Hebrews will say, well, that's not it. Or some will say, that's not it because where's the last H, right? They don't understand that the root, they haven't gone to the Ethiopic roots, right? And getting to the Ethiopic roots, where is that one right now? There's a lot of, fishing through a lot of this and finding the key elements. Okay, here we go. We already saved this over here. Let us paste this. All right, let us paste this right here. Put that on the side and let us zoom in on this. Let's look at some of the Hebrew names, right? The key is really studying the Hebrew names, right? And studying the names. The names are really the whole key, as you say, the key to the story, the key to the mystery. Look at Yehuda. Right? Some say Judah, but it's Yehuda, Yehuda, Yehuda or Yehuda, Yahweh, Yahweh. We say Yahweh, but Yahweh it's like tomato. At that vowel, that fine level, Yahweh. And see, the breath is very important too. Yahweh. The breath is so very important. This is how the ancient Hebrews, from an ancient Hebraic perspective, right? An ancient Hebrew, not a kind of a Gentile. What they try to do, what they call it, reverse engineer. They're trying to reverse engineer the name of Yahweh. And we're going to the root and showing them the truth. This is the root and the truth of Yahweh. So we have the names like Yehuda, right? Yosaphe, Yosaphe. We have, Yochabed or Yokabed. They say Yokabed. We have, Yehoshua or Yehoshua, right? We also have Yehoshua. Okay, that's two forms of it. You can see there's two forms of Joshua, right? Look right there. There's two forms of Joshua that we have in the scripture, right? So there's two spellings of it. So we find that there are alternative spellings. Because even today, many of y'all, man, my brothers and sisters, sometimes when we text, people text like they, like they speak. So now we sound out words. And people might say, oh, that's incorrect. Why? Because there's something called a dictionary, right? And there's a certain academic, grammatical, definitional kind of system, right? And they'll say, well, it's not spelled according to the book, but the book is assembled by men. In ancient time, this was not so, right? People articulated and sounded out the way they spoke it. They sounded it out. And this explains for some of the variations that we clearly find. Like look at Jerusalem. And then number 5, Jerusalem. We have Yerushalayim, right? Yerushalayim. Then we have Yerushalayim. So you can see where there's an extra yod, which is there. And we have actual scripture based on the Masoretic, where we can see the two, Joshua 10:1, Jeremiah 26:18. Let's look over here. We have Yeru-Baal, right? Or Jeru-Baal, right? Yeru-Baal. We have Yonatan. Notice right there, Yonatan. Now, how do we get from Yahweh? You know what I'm saying? There's a contraction that is going on. This is why when we put up the series on the biblical Hebrew, right? The biblical Hebrew. Let's just do this right here so we can go on overdrive and won't power down. The biblical Hebrew, and we touched on the biblical Hebrew for Yeshua. We try to go through the steps of that to really show that all these arguments and all this dogma, there's a lot of dogma that a lot of latter-day people are making and dividing people and saying, well, you got to say it this way and this is the right way based on their interpretation. And then when you look into the scripture, you can find some of the variations of it that basically explains the different ways that people are saying it today, but people are being kind of like mitigated into like divided and conquered, right? See, that's Satan right there, right? Playing with one's ignorance. But if you were to study to show yourself approved, you begin to recognize, okay, yes, it could be said like that. Then look into the scripture and you might find out, as we have found out, that yes, it was said like that, right? So we have Jonathan, right? Or Jonathan. And then we have two versions of Jonathan right here. We have Yonatan, right? And we have Yehonatan. Notice that? Yehonatan. So what's different? What's different, we find in this one right here, this is Yod and Weh, right? Yod and Weh. Here we have Yod, Hey, and Weh, right? Yod, Hey, and Weh, or Way, really. Yod, Hey, and Way, or YHW, right? Where's the last H? Where's the last H? You see what we were saying from before? Where's that last H? This conforms even to what we have here, right? This conforms very much to what we have here, right? Where it's a trigrammaton, right? And in the Metzaf Kedus of the King of Kings of the line of Judah, we find that the trigrammaton, right? The Trinity of the trigrammaton is used because after all, the final Hey is a reduplication, right, of the first one. And we find this also in names. Are you going to say that, well, you find this is Jonathan's name? Two ways. Yonatan can also be said as Yehonatan. So which one is correct? Which one is correct? See, now people are going to pick and choose, but we can show you right here in the scripture, 1 Samuel 14:49, we have Yonatan, and 1 Samuel 18:1, we have Yehonatan, right? Yehonatan, where it is, where the wow has been added, thereby making a O sound, making the hey, right, an O sound. Or in some versions, it could be Yehunatan. It could be Yehunatan, but more was Yehonatan. And we have this based on the evidence and comparing with the Ethiopic manuscripts as well. The Ethiopic becomes our way of weighing and balancing, right? Our point of reference. That's why Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9 and 10 says that he would turn to the peoples a pure language, and then links beyond the rivers of what? Ethiopia, right? The suppliants, right? The daughter of my dispersed. We are that daughter of the dispersed, as the once lost but now found Beta Ethiopian Hebrews here in the North Country, in the Americas and the Caribbean, or so-called black, some will say black Hebrews. We have our nationality, right? Zion. Zion is located in that biblical land known as Tobia, Ethiopia, right? The kingdom and the throne of David. That's Zion right there. But now I don't want to get too much into that because that's a hot point right there. But let's look at the next name. We have Yoab. They say Yoav, but really Yoab, right? Yoab, right? Yoab. And Yo right there, notice that that's Yod and Wet. Now some say, well, that's not the name right there because it's YHWH. See, these are fools. These are foolish, unlearned. This is what Peter said concerning Paul. He said, many who are unstable and unlearned. They're on some doctrine. They're on a particular school of thought, right? But that's